Spooky Month is one of those projects that really strikes a certain chord with me, mostly because it demonstrates one of my personal favorite aspects of indie animation, that being that the core of their creation is someone's passion. Like, this is truly something that can only be created out of love.
I love your piss, dude.
I could never. The original Spooky Month was a short posted on, you won't believe this, Halloween, and it had the simplest premise ever. It was created by an animator that goes by the name of Serpello online, and probably by a different name in real life, and at the time of the short being posted, it didn't really stand out much amongst his usual content, both in its style and execution. It really just felt like the simplest Halloween special, a little love letter to the month of the spooky, if you will.
It is the Pokemon! It's a Pokemon! 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 Pokemon!
The short was essentially just a compilation of these two kids in the generic Halloween costumes, Skid, the kid in the skeleton costume, and Pump, the kid in the pumped up cakes. I'm kidding. The kid in the pumpkin costume just running around screaming Spooky Month and speedrunning, doing all kinds of Halloween related activities, such as playing horror games, watching horror films, hanging out at the graveyard, summoning demons. You know, the stuff we all did as kids. Well, except for me, I was never a child. I came into the world full grown. So yeah, this thing was pretty unserious. There is absolutely no plot progression, no weight to anything that happens, just a collection of little gags. Like, there's this one part at the beginning where Skid's mom Lila is being held at knife point by this random guy, and it's treated with the same level of seriousness as... yeah, just none. We never even see this guy again. I messed up a part, so I had to re-record this. If my voice sounds a little different, it's because I started going through puberty while I was editing. You may ask, why am I even bringing attention to this? Like, no duh. This is an animated YouTube comedy short. Why would it have any of that stuff here? Well, I cannot answer that question, cause spoilers. We haven't gotten to the part of the video where it becomes relevant yet, and therefore I am legally not allowed to talk about it, so if you wanna know, you'll just have to keep watching, I guess. You have no choice now. Overall, the short could have just been a one-time thing of its own, although then we would be living in the timeline where Kevin doesn't exist, and I don't know how I would have dealt with that. On November 17th, the year after the year of 2018, a sequel drops, titled The Stars, where things start to get a little more interesting. This episode has more of a variety in the events that transpire. It still doesn't start to follow the traditional conflict resolution story beats until the third episode, sorry for spoilers, but it already starts to give you so much more to dig your teeth into, which is an activity I am personally quite fond of. Like, besides bringing back some of the beloved characters from the previous short, such as Frank the Kidnapper, Skid's grandma, and Moloch the Demon, it introduces a few new ones that will also appear and be expanded upon in later episodes, like these thieves, the Hads gang, and more importantly Kevin, who is the best character in the entire show, I've decided. It also gives us little hints to the potential lore as well as character depth. The episode is still a lot more comedy focused, just like the first short, but there are already implications being sprinkled in that the audience can expect more from these characters than the surface level, like with the Hads gang, for example. These three have a pretty short screen time. They show up and immediately proceed to bully the kids for reasons I can only speculate on, probably being douches, which sets them up as antagonists. Skid and Pump, however, don't really act hostile towards them at all, and don't even seem to be scared either, showing us that these two are more on the friendlier and more naive side, the latter of which being demonstrated further when Roy, the supposed leader of the gang, tells them there's a Halloween party in a spooky party in a creepy house up on the hill, and they instantly believe him and just rush their way inside. Yeah, sure, these three who just showed up, called us losers, and beat us up are definitely trustworthy. Right before we cut to the kids at the house, though, Roy drops this one-liner.
That's where my uncle takes me.
What? No, hold on a second. What? So the only expansion we get to this wild implication of a line is in the next scene we see Had's gang, where Roy has been apparently confronted by the other two about it and is shouting.
What do you mean it's wrong?
But that's kind of it. It's never really addressed again in the series itself, and I don't know if it's ever been addressed outside the series by Serpello or anyone on the team. In the fandom, however, it has been collectively agreed that it meant what every single one of us had thought it meant. You know, my original reading of this line was it was a throwaway gag similar to that of what many adult comedies do, but with the context of what they do with the characters in the following episodes, sorry for spoilers again, it makes more sense to believe it was a casual hint into character depth and not just a throwaway line. Like, this is the first time we see these characters. From the perspective of our protagonists, they could just be their bullies, and yet we're already seeing that there could be more to them than the surface level. I know I could just be digging way too deep here. That's the end of the sentence, I don't know what else to add. It would be kind of funny, to be honest, if it was ever revealed that the way we read what is implied to be wrong here was incorrect, and that Roy's uncle was sneaking him into that house to, like, cook meth or something and using him for free child labor. Like, we know at least one of those things is wrong. Would honestly prefer for that to be the case, if only to ensure that this fictional child character that I don't even know personally is okay. Would just be better for my soul. Speaking of souls and not having one, I don't know who this guy the kids encounter in the house is, but if that's Roy's uncle, then good. I love this gag so much. He just gets stepped on so unceremoniously. Again, I don't know if that's Roy's uncle, but he was still planning something unholy there, so either way he deserved it. Cooking meth is illegal. Also, it's nice to see that the kids do have a proper understanding of stranger danger and know how to separate the spooky from the scary. Especially Skid, who was horrified by the sight of this disgusting monster, but was completely chill and fine with this handsome fella, even if Pump was a bit off-put by him at first. So this lovely monster, I don't know his name, I'm just gonna call him Dave, is this episode's monster of the week. The star of the show, if you will. He may or may not be connected to the deeper lore of the series, but I don't know, I didn't watch Game Theory. Unlike the other antagonists of the following episodes, Dave doesn't really pose much of a threat and is actually a pretty chill dude, who is also a spooky enthusiast. He only shows up at the end, kills a meth dealer, scars some kids, gets some candy, and then screws off on his merry-go-way because the episode is almost over and even the Eyes of the Universe have a schedule to follow. Speaking of eyes and candies, eye candy if you will, this episode also introduces Kevin, which by default makes it the best episode in the entire series. He only has 3 lines and 11 seconds of screen time, and they're all perfect, and do a great job of setting up his role, personality, and the relationship between him and the kids, all in a very short time. 11 seconds. Don't worry, if you already got attached to him, that number will be extended. Sorry for spoilers again. Like, we can learn pretty quickly that these 3 already know each other and that the kids seem to have a certain habit of showing up for free candy on Halloween. I'm not sure if that's like a thing that their store has or if Kevin is like a friend of theirs or something, but I'm glad they didn't tell us this information because my interest is piqued and I would like to know more. Also, the fact that he's on screen helps to communicate certain aspects of his character through his design. Like, his hair helps us to communicate the fact that he has a really nice hair and really cute face, and his uniform looks really nice on him, and when he speaks, he has a really nice voice. And he's... Okay, I'm done, I'm sorry. I really like Kevin. Love how the scene just cuts off before Kevin has a chance to react to Dave, by the way. It's just so absurd. But with that, the kids head back home, and the episode ends on another little spooky dance. And that's it, nothing else happens in this episode.
Hey Jack, check out that hill.
What is that?
I don't know.
I was gonna include the last line to be cryptic and all, but that cut is so funny. Besides the expansion to the story and the world, this episode also has a noticeably higher production value. It has more voice actors as opposed to just being Serpello, as well as more artists and animators, as opposed to just being Serpello. The second episode overall works pretty well as an introduction to the entire series. I would even dare to say it's better than the original short, if you compare the contents of both. Although that's a bit of a stretch, because the few things that are expanded upon in later episodes originally started off as gags in the first short, And while the original context of it isn't necessary to explain their origin, like I don't think anyone is gonna be that confused by any of it, it still does add a level of, I don't know, satisfaction. Like you didn't think this would be significant at all, but then bam, it is, and you're like, poggers. It's really poggers is what I would call it. Like, you remember that red guy from the first short that just showed up and disappeared and we never thought we'd see him again? Well, surprise! He is actually the antagonist of the third episode. Speaking of which,